What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Sean Barnard. I already broke down Daryl Morey's thoughts on media day, the biggest takeaways from that. But this video, I want to dive into something I think is a little more important, which is Joel Embiid's thoughts on the entire situation when it comes to James Harden. That being a situation that he's unfortunately all too familiar with his co-star sitting out and refusing to play for the team. So I want to break down his thoughts, what specifically he said on the issue, and how much that changes things for the Sixers moving forward. Now, before I dive into things, I do want to remind that you guys make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. As of now, 88.8% of you watching this video have not subscribed to the channel yet. The season is almost here. The nonsense of the offseason, the pulling for topics, that's all in our rear view. That we have actual basketball about to be broken down in front of us. Plenty of news with these Sixers. I cannot wait to dive fully in this season, and I want each and every one of you along for the ride every step of the way. So let's get into the topic of this video, which is, of course, Joel Embiid's comments on the James Harden situation as a whole. I'll start off with saying that I do really appreciate Joel Embiid's overall tune for this interview. That I think for the most part, and while he's still littered in, his little digs and comments and jokes that he loves to do, but this was a very honest just interview and reaction from Joel Embiid, that he really sat there. It felt like he was not putting on a media show, that he was honestly asking to the extent that he could each question. Now, some of his comments here, I want to begin with the difference between the Harden and the Ben Simmons saga. I thought this was a nice window into Embiid's thought process here, and he has said, quote, "I think it's a little different. I think the last time this happened, there was a lot of stuff in the media about that we're kind of, whether it was blaming me and the others. So I think at that time I was a little defensive. But this time around, it just seems like maybe it was a misunderstanding between both sides. But I can only control what I can control. That's to go out there and try to play with what we have and try to be a leader and bring these guys along and compete every night and try to win." So I do like that response from Embiid. I think it's cool to acknowledge a little bit of past defensiveness in this situation. It's very clear that there was much more beef between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons than there currently is between Joel Embiid and James Harden. And I think that was seen throughout the course of the team, that it's very clear this is not a James Harden versus the Sixers or versus his teammates. It's James Harden versus Daryl Morey. He's mad at Daryl Morey specifically, not at Joel Embiid, not at the Sixers. There, for the most part, seems to be good feelings there. And you can even reflect on some of the comments of the offseason of Joel Embiid saying, like, I hope he changes his mind. That's still my brother, all these things. So it's clear the tone is solid there. And I do think that is something to note, that if there hypothetically is a Morey and Harden sitting down figuring things out, that it feels like the teammates would accept Harden back right away. And that is a storyline. I don't think that's how things were for Ben Simmons. I think that was a bridge that completely broke. That is not how this case is with James Harden. So I do think that's interesting to note. To dive into the next thing from Embiid here, he talked a little bit about his future with the Sixers, which is a hot topic of conversation here, and I really liked his response as well. Embiid said, quote, "It's all about consistency. If every year is going to be the same thing, then that doesn't push you closer to winning a championship. So that gets frustrating. But I also believe that no matter, like I said, it doesn't matter who's on the team. I'm always going to believe that I have a chance of winning. So it's all up to me willing to just go out there and try to do whatever it takes. I'm here in Philly. I love Philly. I've been here my whole career. It's all about trying to win a championship. Mostly, really, honestly, if I got to be honest, if we were to win a championship, it'd be for the city and for the fans because they deserve it going through the process years, the disappointments. I don't think anybody wants to go back to that era of basketball where you have a shot of winning, but when you got a bunch of good players on this basketball team, anything can happen. Tyrese, I think, is ready to take another step. Tobias, I expect him to be great like he's always been. Contract year. James, contract year if he is to show up. We got a bunch of other guys. We added some guys. Kelly Oubre Jr., I think is going to help us out a lot. And so many of the other guys are just trying to focus on taking it day by day, trying to figure it out and how to win as a team with a new coaching staff. So a little bit long-winded there, but just the reassurance that he is bought into the Sixers, I think, is really reassuring. I think that's good to hear, that he is bought in, and for the short term at least, that he believes in the Daryl Morey vision. He wants to see the conclusion of how this James Harden thing is handled. And as I said, from the Sixers' perspective, from the internal organizational standpoint, I don't think it's off the table that James Harden suits up for these Sixers again. How James Harden feels about that is a different subject or a different topic of conversation, but Embiid has very much extended that olive branch and been one of the leaders enforcing that. Those kind of phrases, the take it day by day, control what we control, focus on ourselves, those were all pretty common phrases tossed around by a number of the players as well. I want to dive into another point here, and this was a tweet that Embiid set up that kind of stirred things up yesterday, right after the Jrue Holiday, that just said, the offseason was fun, LMAO. So he touched on that specifically. That was one of the quickest questions that was asked, unsurprisingly so, that just happened yesterday. There's a video on the challenge and on the channel of me breaking down my reaction to that as well. But they asked Embiid specifically, and he said that he considers this offseason A+, and referenced how much fun he has. He talked about getting married, his honeymoon, as well as the NBA activities. Embiid also shoots down the notion that the Celtics and Bucks automatically surpassed them with the trade. So no specific quote there, but I do think it was cool that Embiid, A, had fun with it, and B, kind of didn't back down. Like, he even went on talking about how he likes seeing the reaction of the Heat fans getting mad or the Bucks fans getting excited, that he think that's a cool part of the NBA. And to take a little bit of a zoom out outside of basketball, talking about getting married, going on the honeymoon. He had an awesome summer. And while there was a distraction with the Sixers where there's all this nonsense continuing to come on, we got to understand that these are people at the end of the day. And Joel Embiid had an awesome summer, basketball aside. So it's great to hear that. And I also like that he didn't back down. He still included the NBA, and he still is confident. He even shot back at a reporter when they asked, like, how does it feel that the Sixers have kind of fallen behind these other teams in the Eastern Conference as they make these big-time moves and you guys don't? And Embiid says, like, well, why does that mean they're better than us, that they had to give up guys to get things? That was a phrase by Morey that was echoed as well, talking about the Jrue Holiday trade looks great on paper, but they had to give up Robert Williams and draft picks and some talented players to get a deal done. That you have to give and take in this league, and sometimes that gets overlooked when we see these big names coming one way or another. So it was cool to see Embiid echo that message as well. And that being that he's not backing down, he's not throwing anybody under the bus with that tweet was cool. So overall, that is kind of the biggest takeaway with Embiid, the comments that he made. There was a good amount of reassurance of his commitment to the Sixers, which I think everyone appreciates hearing right now in the era of stars hopping all over the place. I will say that he was probably one of the more outspoken about that. Guys like PJ Tucker, not quite the case, that he seems more loyal to Harden than the Sixers for sure, and that's understandable. I mean, Tucker himself said he came to Philadelphia to play with James and Joel. Now that James is not here, that's obviously an issue, or not an issue. He said obviously business is business. He will continue to suit up and play. That is the priority, but he knows that James feels strongly and that his relationship extends far beyond basketball with James Harden. You do have to respect that. There's comments like Patrick Beverley as well, who had similar phrases, saying that James was one of the reasons that I wanted to come to Philadelphia. If he's not here, it's going to be a massive disappointment, but we have enough guys to go to war with or without him. So I think that's just the biggest takeaway. Number one, I think Joel is a very smart NBA player. At times that I don't think that gets acknowledged enough. Me personally, I can speak from, that's always been one of my greatest impressions of Joel Embiid. That anytime I've had the chance to interview him, talk to him, watch the press conferences, this is a guy that is a very high IQ human being and knows what he's talking about. A lot of times when he makes these comments to the media, it's very intentional, that it is with a purpose. And I think today is with the same thing. And his message today, or his belief, his driving force, what he wanted to portray, he was more locked in, he's serious, he's committed to the Sixers, and he's ready for this year to be a little different. How that goes about, whether there is roster changes incoming, whether it is Harden buying back in, I think Embiid is at the point where he understands. He's bought into Nick Nurse. He talked a lot about the changes within the offense. It is disappointing in this whole thing that I am so in on Nick Nurse as a head coach. I'm so excited to have him take control of these Sixers, and I hate that all this other noise is holding me back from getting that excitement. But Embiid talked a little bit about that as well, about his conversations with Nurse, how he sees his offensive usage scaling back, there being some more just fluid movement in the offense, in the half court, the ball popping around way more than has traditionally been the case in a Doc Rivers offense or a Joel Embiid offense, to be honest. So I think those are all points of excitement, that you change that look. That changes how the entire Sixers look. As much as we want to point at specific guys, whether it be Doc Rivers is the scapegoat, or Ben Simmons is the scapegoat, or whoever you want to throw, there's been some systematic issues with this team, especially over the past couple of years when we talk about too much being reliant on Embiid. And I get it. Building around a big man comes with its challenges in today's NBA. But I can tell you one of the ways you're not making that case better is by just giving them to the post and everybody standing around and watch. I know Joel Embiid is not Nikola Jokic, that they have very different strengths and weaknesses as basketball players. But when you watch that Nuggets team play, the amount of off-ball movement and creation ability from guys like Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, the way they cut down the lane, pop open for three-pointers, that never happens on the Sixers. That we never have sets where we see Tyrese Maxey coming off a down screen or a pin down, getting an open three-point look. It's pretty much been give it to Joel Embiid and watch. And when there are those days where he drops 52 points, has 17 rebounds, 5 blocks, and they carries him to a win, it's a blast to watch and amazing that he is that special talent. but there has to be a fact of making life a little bit easier or looking for offense outside of your superstar. Those are the steps that I think Joel Embiid wants to take. I'm happy he's at that level as a mature human being and basketball player at this state of his career. I'm excited to see that put to practice and see what Nick Nurse has in mind from a stylistic and system mindset from that point. But for now, we wait. Tomorrow, the ball hits the hardwood, that the feet will hit the pavement. We will have some actual basketball played. And I also do think it is an advantage for this roster that they've been doing all these Rico Hines runs, that they've been out in LA training together. These guys referring to it as basically their first training camp. That is all cool. The familiarity that these guys will already enter the season with. That's an advantage compared to other teams. But training camps, when we'll get to a sense of what this team's actually shaped up to be, we'll get a look at what this new look offense is, the changes Nick Nurse made, and it is time to start buying back in on Sixers basketball. Embiid clearly has the trust of Daryl Morey that he believes in his outlook from here, and we will see how things shake up to that point. For now, we will wait and see. We will see if training camp changes anything, what Harden's outlook, when and if he finally presents himself in the arena there. And I will be with you guys every step of the way. So thanks once again for tuning in this video. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell so you're not missing out on any content. And I'll be back with you every step of the way here on Sixers Digest. Peace.